So my name is Woody Jenkins. I'm from Baton Rouge, and I'm proudly representing the state of Louisiana here at the Convention of States. I've had an opportunity to serve for 28 years in the Louisiana House and been around politics, starting as a page in the legislature for 60 years up until now, where I'm Republican chairman in East Baton Rouge Parish. But the things that I've done, I think, that are most significant was, number one, that I had the opportunity to serve as a delegate to our constitutional convention that we had in Louisiana to draft a proposed new constitution, and that was in 1973-74, and we were successful. The voters approved that, and I had the privilege of serving on the Bill of Rights Committee and authored our Declaration of Rights in Louisiana. The Louisiana Constitution is very protective of individual liberty, I think more than any state, and we're the last constitution to be adopted in this country. It's very difficult to revise a constitution. Most people fail at it, so when you have a success, it's noteworthy. Well, in 1972, we had a new governor, Edwin Edwards, and he was very much to the left. And he proposed this constitutional convention with 105 elected delegates and 27 that he would appoint. Well, that concerned me a lot, to have so many appointed delegates from the governor. And so I was very skeptical of it, but I decided to run as a delegate and was elected. And so then we had about 25 of us from the legislature who served in the Constitutional Convention. And one of the most interesting things to me was I noticed that people who had, as legislators, had been sometimes rather self-serving and very political, they were transformed by this experience of having the opportunity to draft the state constitution. They truly became statesmen. They started looking beyond the next election, beyond what was in their political interest, and started thinking about the next generation. And I think that's what you'll see if and when, I believe we will have a convention of states. I think you'll see this, that people rise above the everyday and start thinking about what can they do to really make a contribution to the future of our country. I think a convention of states could make a real difference. Now, bear in mind, 34 states have to call for a convention and 38 states have to ratify any of the work. So you're not going to pass constitutional amendments that are just for Republicans or Democrats. You know, it's going to, with 38 states, that means that you're going to have red states and blue states, legislatures from all of them approving any work of a convention. So, and we have to keep that in mind. It's not necessarily to get all the things I would want, but we have to think, what would our country be able to accept? An example of that, a proposal that I'm very much excited about, is to change how a bill becomes a law. Remember this, the Constitution's been around over 200 years. To me, our founding fathers and the delegates there were divinely inspired. I really believe that. But on the other hand, we do know there are flaws. There are things that can be improved. How a bill becomes a law is an example of that. Right now, the way it works, because there's no requirements otherwise in the Constitution, every bill can be like the kitchen sink or Noah's Ark. It can have everything from, we're going to regulate whaling, to change Social Security, to raise the income tax, to regulate or eliminate gas stoves, all in one bill. This is why you have these 3,000-page bills. And so it destroys accountability. Congressmen have to say, well, I voted for this bill, it has gun control in it, I'm not for gun control, but it has this gun control feature, but it also had the general appropriations for the military, so I had to vote for it. So that means you can't ever hold anyone accountable. So the proposal, actually, that I'm offering, and others are too, is to say that every bill introduced into Congress had to be limited to one object. Only one thing. It could do whaling or it can do taxes, but it can't do everything under the sun. So one object, and then every amendment to be considered has to be germane to that one object as defined by the title to the bill. It has other regulations on how a bill becomes a law, but accountability is what this will cause. So if someone says, you know, I want to do something on the life issue, or I want to do something on immigration, there's one bill, one vote that you can look to and hold that congressman accountable for the vote. Everything that's been passed heretofore, amending the Constitution, has had to be approved by the Congress. And there's very few changes that have been made. But what if Congress is the problem? What if it's impossible to make the changes you need? Because remember, you need 2/3 vote of both houses. You're getting plain vanilla normally if you get that sort of vote. So what the founders did in Article 5, they set forth another procedure, and that is, if Congress is the problem, how can the people, acting through the state legislatures and a convention, how can they correct the problems that Congress is causing? And that's what we're really talking about at this convention. That's why it's so important. Maybe there needs to be more than one convention, because one convention may not be able to solve all the problems. But periodically, the people need to send representatives, separate and apart from Congress, to look at our system and see how we can tweak it. We have a great system in America, but it has some flaws, and we can change them through an Article 5 Convention of States. My favorite is the proposal to change how a bill becomes a law, so that every bill considered by Congress would have to have one major purpose and could only receive amendments that are germane to that one purpose. So that's my favorite. I know one of the most popular ideas that legislators are discussing at this convention is term limits for Congress. Now you'll wonder, why would Congress never pass such a constitutional amendment? Well, they don't like term limits, but the people of the country do, so that's something that an Article 5 convention might well consider. And there's so many other things, but those are two of the best, I think. This is a great personal privilege and opportunity, so I would not miss it if given the opportunity to come to a simulated convention of states or the real convention of states when we get our 34 states.
I can tell you from firsthand, it can be done, it will be effective.
So I think there are people who've never even heard of it that are going to see this and be impressed, and I think that builds enthusiasm.
This is the defining moment and the last opportunity to get our republic right.
We need a solution as big as the problem.